Hi, everyone. My name is Poe Murray. I am the chair of the Newtown Action Alliance, a national grassroots organization formed after my neighbor killed 26 children and educators in Sandy Hook. Thank you for joining us today. Last week, former President Barack Obama conceded that America has continued to neglect the long-lasting epidemic of gun violence, urging meaningful action. After recent mass shooting tragedies in Boulder, Chicago, and Atlanta, a broad coalition of survivors, gun violence prevention groups, frontline community violence interruption groups, faith groups, and others are calling on President Biden and Congress to make gun violence a priority. During the campaign, the president told us that the country is ready for gun reform, and he reiterated this on Tuesday after the Boulder shooting when he called on Congress not to wait another minute to pass reform. That's why today we are joined here calling on him to meet with us, formulate a comprehensive plan and vision for reducing gun deaths, and release that plan during his joint address to Congress. We are calling on Congress to work actively with the president to pass much needed gun reform legislation. We need immediate presidential leadership on this issue because Joe Biden is an effective leader. We've seen this throughout his career, and just recently, when the president and his administration passed a critical COVID relief package, despite unified opposition from Republicans. He beat the NRA and passed a Brady bill and the assault weapons ban in 1994, and we know that he can do it again. Our lives depend on Congress tightening gun laws and investments in the communities most impacted by gun violence. Every day, over 100 people are killed by guns and hundreds more are injured. After the Sandy Hook tragedy, President Obama asked Joe Biden to lead the White House task force to end the gun violence crisis in our nation because there was no one better equipped to tackle this life or death issue than Joe Biden. He pulled together a big table meeting with the families from Sandy Hook and families who were impacted by other shooting tragedies, activists, and other stakeholders. Joe Biden's White House task force called for bold legislative changes, and when Mitch McConnell blocked the life-saving gun bills using the filibuster, President Obama signed numerous executive actions. There was a sense of urgency back then. 8 years later, we are puzzled by the lack of urgency, particularly when he has shown so much empathy towards the families who have been most impacted by gun violence, and after running on the strongest gun safety platform. As a Sandy Hook resident, I am living in a community devastated by one act of gun violence committed by a gunman who had easy access to an AR-15. Now, 10 families are mourning their loved ones who were victims of a similar massacre with another weapon of war in Boulder due to federal inaction. As a Korean American, I have been heartsick after a gunman targeted and killed Asian American women in Atlanta. I fear for my mother and my daughters and other individuals who look like us. As a gun violence prevention advocate, I have been heartbroken for the families impacted by the Atlanta, Boulder, and Chicago mass shootings. Most haven't buried their loved ones yet. Many of us on this call know firsthand that those families and their communities are hurting very badly right now. Gun sales and gun deaths are spiking. In fact, in the period between the shooting in Boulder on March 22nd and the president's press conference yesterday, we experienced nearly a 12% increase in gun deaths compared to the same time last year. At least 152 people lost their lives to gun violence, excluding suicides. Those numbers will likely increase as our schools, movie theaters, and other public places like grocery stores continue to reopen. President Biden and Congress cannot wait. The time to act is now. And now the survivors will share their stories on why President Biden and Congress must act. And we will begin with Dr. Chico Tillman from Chicago.
Initially, I came into this space to talk about a mass shooting that happened March 15th in Chicago, where 15 people were shot and 2 were killed. However, I have to pivot from that conversation because last night, another mass shooting happened in Chicago where 8 people were shot. One was killed, and unfortunately, one of the individuals that was shot in the head was my partner's nephew. I have to tell you, even though I sit in the space as an activist, as an individual that's a researcher and a practitioner, I'm not immune to the devastation of gun violence. As a matter of fact, I'm impacted by it daily because it's happening in our community. And we're asking the president to release the $5.3 billion that we have been discussing to allow resources to get to the community so that we can fight against this evil disease that's just disrupting the Black and brown communities and many communities throughout the United States. What we have learned through these mass shootings is that this violence epidemic has no preference. It impacts everyone, and it's out to destroy everyone. We need our president to act now, because from the last conversation we had to now, 8 more people in my community have been shot and 1 has been killed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chico Tillman. I'm just so sorry for your loss. It's just not fair. Next, we have Sandy Phillips, a friend and a founder of Survivors Empowered, who I met immediately after the Sandy Hook shooting. Sandy.
Thank you, Poe. My name is Sandy Phillips, and my husband and I founded Survivors Empowered after our daughter Jessie was massacred in the Aurora Theater shooting in 2012. We have responded to 17 mass shootings since that time. I use the word public mass shootings because daily mass shootings happen in neighborhoods and homes around America every single day, and they never make the news. 5 months after our shooting, Sandy Hook happened, and we were hopeful that it would make a difference and good common sense gun laws would be passed. Weeks after Sandy Hook, my husband met with then President Biden when he convened the first gun violence task force. He made a promise to us that gun violence would be addressed. We know his sincerity, we know his heart, we know he is busy, but we need action now. Not just executive orders, but real legislative action that to end the carnage in our streets. The people of America are fed up with the daily bloodshed. We have the support of most Americans, and now is the time. Survivors Empowered has had trauma therapists on the ground in Boulder to help those affected by the shooting, a shooting that would not have happened had the assault weapons ban still been in place. Assault style weapons of war are the choice of killers. They are not hunting guns unless you're hunting humans. These weapons of war must be banned along with their accessories and armor piercing bullets. Mr. President, you made a promise on day 1 of your administration to send a bill to Congress to repeal the liability protection for gun manufacturers known as PLACA. This has not happened, but we still believe you and Congress will make this happen. PLACA has kept survivors from their constitutional right to have their day in court and protected the very people who have made it easy for these weapons to be on our streets in our country. I have seen too many survivors of gun violence. I have heard too many stories over these 8 years. I have met mothers who have lost all their children at different times because gun violence is a plague in our nation. I have known too many who have been touched by multiple times by gun violence. My own Jessie witnessed a mass shooting only 7 weeks before her death in Aurora. Her journalism professor lost her husband this week in Boulder. Survivors of Las Vegas went on to witness or be killed at the borderline shooting in Thousand Oaks the following year. So I ask, when is it enough? This cannot wait. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you for being a warrior for all these years. And we have so many warriors in this fight. And the next person is an incredible frontline worker, the founder of Life Camp, Eresa Ford.
Thank you, everyone, for having us. And I want to, although we are asking for more meetings, I want to acknowledge that the White House has been meeting with different folks, are making emphasis to do something different, but the urgency and the importance of now is beyond words. When Chico talks about the young people who were killed and shot yesterday and last week, it was 15 people last week. It was 8 last night. And so therefore we have to look at the urgency and the importance, just as we do with the coronavirus, right? We have to contain those that have the coronavirus and get them the vaccines and get them the resources that they need. And the young people who are being shot and killed and the families who are being destroyed throughout America must get the oxygen that they need to breathe. They must get the resources that they need to live and live in communities free of violence. And we know that it's possible because we see many communities free of violence. And those communities aren't over-policed. Those communities aren't run down by no quality education and healthcare and food and things for their children to do. Those communities have resources. And so that's why the Fund Peace Coalition asks for $5.3 billion to go across America into community-based public safety, into organizations like Life Camp. And I stand here with the red and the blue, representing the Democrat and the Republicans, or the Bloods and the Crips. Everybody's got to stop fighting. Everybody's got to stand together. Everybody has to unify because our children's lives are in danger. And our children's lives are important. Our children's lives are valuable. Last night, one of my workers got shot walking down the block by a drive-by. He called his daughter and said goodbye. He called his daughter and said, I love you, because he thought he wasn't gonna make it. This trauma and pain that is going through our community has to stop. And the work that we do works. And so we know investing in people like me, investing in the work that brothers and sisters across the nation do like me, will get the results that we need to move the hate out of the lives of people who use guns as resolutions to pain. We'll take the lives of people to another level in terms of what they do. And so we urge you to move with the urgency and importance that our lives, because last week we met, yesterday we met, and today we have more victims. We got to move stronger together.
Thank you so much, Eresa. And you have a great partner and a leader, Greg Jackson, who is the National Advocacy Director from the Community Justice Action Fund. And he has pulled a coalition to make sure that the Black and Brown communities who are most impacted by gun violence will receive the funding that they need to save lives. So Greg, take it away.
Thank you, Poe, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this important message. My name is Greg Jackson, and I come to this work not by choice. You know, when I became an advocate to address gun violence was on April 21st of 2013, when I was shot as a bystander, and the bullet that hit 2 arteries in my body and left me bleeding to death, you know, changed my life forever. You know, when I arrived at the hospital in the emergency room, I wasn't met by a surgeon and a doctor. I was met by law enforcement and 3 investigators, you know, questioning me as a victim about what was my role and why was I part of this crime and this criminal activity when I was a bystander. You know, then I was able to meet my surgeon, and I was told I had 20 minutes left to live from blood loss. When I turned on the television the day after my surgery, which was 3 days after the historic background check vote, I didn't see legislators and leaders stepping up to take action to bring about change. I saw bickering. I saw political football games. I saw this debate that was happening around the rights, but no one was thinking about the lives and the trauma and the pain. No one was thinking about my parents who were at my bedside in tears, my brother who was angered, my family that was shattered. And I was a lucky one. I'm one of the lucky ones. You know, all across our country, since I was shot in April 21st of 2013, nearly 800,000 people have been shot or killed by gun violence. Nearly 1 million people have been through that same level of trauma and tragedy and are still living with that today. They're still living with that pain, that anger, and most importantly, that powerlessness to bring about any real change. And so here we are today, advocating and just begging that leaders in Congress, that our White House, that our governors, that our mayors, that our elected officials all come together to take action. We've seen 10 mass shootings in a matter of 13 days. Last night, last week, 2 weeks ago, in 2020, we saw over 600 mass shootings where people were impacted directly, and we've seen no action. Our coalition has been inspired by the conversations and the ideas and the partnership of leaders in government. But what we're here for is not conversation and partnership. What we're here for is action. This conference right now is not about a press conference yesterday. It's about the lack of action that needs to be taken to save lives every day. And for us, that means addressing the supply and the guns that are being poured into our neighborhoods, but also addressing the demand and the risk factors that leads to someone acting out violently or becoming a victim of gun violence. And so I'm here to just reinforce we need the federal funding, the investment. That $5.3 billion is a drop in the bucket when we look at the trauma that this crisis has impacted our communities and our country. But most importantly, we want action. We want no more press conferences, no more messaging, no more talking, no more thoughts, no more prayers, no more emails. We want action. And until we get action, we will be here every day, every single day, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's on phone calls, whether it's sitting outside the White House, whether it's sitting in Congress in those halls, until we see action to save lives of our loved ones and our neighbors. So we hope that you hear that loud and clear, and then we'll step up and see the action that we know is necessary to save lives. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to Poe.
Thank you so much, Greg. The last time a gun bill was passed out of Congress was 27 years ago. So millions and millions of people have been killed and injured by guns. So we have to take action, and we are more united than ever before, and our movement is larger than ever before. And sadly, though, it's because of tragedies that we have to meet somebody like Manny Oliver, who lost his beautiful son in Parkland and founded the Change the Ref organization. Manny, tell us why we need to take action.
My wife, Patricia, and myself, we lost our beautiful son, Joaquin. He was inside the school on a regular day, and he was shot 4 times with an AR-15. Those bullets, I can feel them. I carry them. Patricia carries them. And we had a reason to start fighting for Joaquin. We had a reason to start fighting for every single victim of gun violence. So we did. We started fighting. And then we had a reason, after finding all possible barriers, we had a reason to support a new administration. We had a reason to believe that we could reach those goals as long as we had the right person in charge. And that's how we got involved in politics. And we started campaigning, kind of. And we started promoting ideas. And then we finally had a meeting with the actual president, Mr. Joe Biden. And we had this conversation about how hard it is to lose a loved one, because we share that. And what can we do to prevent this from happening to anyone else? Now, Mr. Biden, you are the president of the United States. I'm still the father of Joaquin, carrying my pain. And I will be the father of Joaquin, regardless who is the president of the United States. But as long as you are inside the White House, I need to go to you and ask you to go back to that conversation that we had and start doing something together. No one in this call is expecting you to work alone. We are here. We are here so you know that you shouldn't be afraid of calling out whatever needs to be called out, because there's thousands and millions of Americans that will follow that and will celebrate those decisions. You don't need more Joaquins, more fathers or mothers of Joaquins out there. Every single day that we waste, there's more people joining our terrible group. So the call is to act now. We are outside supporting anything that will save lives. And I see hope, and I don't want to lose that feeling, because it's been a while since I don't feel hope. Help me keep my hope, and I will help you defeat gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manny. And I love your artwork. I love the way that you are sharing your story about ending gun violence through the work that you do with art and young people. Please continue. Next is Kristin Song. She faced unimaginable loss, but she's a warrior. She helped to pass the safe storage bill called Ethan's Law here in Connecticut with significant bipartisan support, because it's an issue that shouldn't be partisan. And Kristin can tell you why it's so important for the president and Congress to take action, because we don't need another mother to join this club.
Thank you, Poe. President Biden and Congress, I wasn't allowed to say goodbye to my beautiful boy. The ER doctor would not let me. You see, my beautiful boy was shot in the head. He was unrecognizable, even to my eyes. I begged. You see, I was the first person to welcome him into this world, and I desperately wanted to be the last to say goodbye. Hold his hand, kiss his forehead, tuck him in one last time, and whisper that mommy loves you. Instead, I walked out of the hospital as my beautiful boy was being wheeled to the morgue. President Biden and Congress, with peace and love, it is time to act on reducing gun violence. Not one more mother should watch her beautiful child be lowered into the ground. Be our heroes. Act now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristin. I always tear up listening to your story. I mean, we have met with so many congressional members and so many of their staff members, and you share this story, and it still breaks my heart to this day, this minute. Next, we have Kelly Choi, who is the board member for March for Our Lives. And I just want to tell you, Kelly, that I am so sorry that we have failed for the last 3 decades to make this country safe for young people like you. And we don't want to wait another 3 decades. We want the president and Congress to take action now to make this country safer for you.
Thank you. I joined March for Our Lives when I was 17, and now I'm 20. And I'm saying the same things that I've been calling for since I was 17, saying that enough is enough. But even I, when I was 12 and Sandy Hook happened, thought that was enough. All the multitude of school shootings that I saw growing up should have been enough. The lives of Black and brown folks disproportionately affected by this issue should be enough. But this issue is still happening. So it's sending a message to me, my peers, and people affected by this issue that we are not enough. But before I am a board member of March for Our Lives, I'm a Korean American woman and daughter to my mother, a South Korean immigrant. Following the events of Atlanta, the Biden administration said that they would address anti-Asian hate. But how can they not address the reason that somebody took the lives of people who look like my own mother? How is not addressing violence after it occurred, trying to keep it from happening again, not sequential, a term Biden used in his own press conference? The Biden administration and candidate and some members of Congress have promised us that they do more than any other candidate on gun violence prevention. So I'm begging, as a student who has grown up in this epidemic of gun violence, to do something. If executive orders were enough, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Gun violence prevention needs to be sustainable and comprehensive. And us on this call, others in this country understand this and are calling for change to attack the root causes of gun violence prevention. Part of this is also appointing a director of gun violence prevention who's committed to this issue and understanding its intersections and nuance. I think, as Greg said before, I don't want more press conferences. I don't want more letters. I don't want more emails. I don't want to call my mom and think about the last time I talked to her, or for me, last night talking to her, begging her to be safe, and telling her that I can take care of myself, but knowing that she'll worry every time I step out of my door now. And I worry for the time that I have my own children. I'm getting older. I'm not that 17-year-old girl anymore, and I hope to be a mother one day. And I'm breaking my own heart thinking about how this issue might still be there for my own children. This issue is pervasive, sinister, and synonymous with the marginalized American experience. And complacency means being complicit in that violence. And young people, BIPOC folks, survivors, and allies have had enough.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for your voice. It's so important. And we need more and more young people to stay engaged and fight with us, to reduce the gun violence. But really, we need Congress and we need the president to lead on this issue. The next speaker is Lasher Summers. She is a survivor of gun violence herself, and she's been leading States United to prevent gun violence because the states are doing the incredible heavy lifting to attempt to make progress. So Clay, tell us more about what you're doing.
Thank you, Poe, and thank you for everybody who has gone before me to share these stories. They're incredibly painful. And I'm deeply apologetic and sorry for you and all of your communities. So my name is Lasher Summers, and I was shot at the age of 13 by my stepfather. So going last in this nearly last in this press conference is difficult for me. I've been watching gun violence for over 45 years in this country, and I have seen an unwillingness for most of the past 27 years, an unwillingness of our leaders to lead on this issue. Gun violence, to me, has been viewed through the lens that not just my family and I suffered a gun violence incident, but that 4 other members of my family, one through suicide, one through a drive-by on a city street, and 2 others where their family members were impacted by gun violence. So I feel that I'm also not unusual in this country now to be a woman who has had other gun violence incidents happen within her family. There's no blessing to being shot by gun. There's no blessing in sitting here trying to lead a group of states that are having problems trying to pass one single piece of legislation and to see states having to push back on racist gun bills that they are doing in every state that is what we would call a quote unquote red state. We're also doing it in states where I see lawmakers who have not lost their seats, but are still not being brave. So what I ask for myself, for everybody on this call, and for everybody that I work with on this issue is for President Biden, who I know has deep empathy. But more than empathy, he has the skills and has shown the skills in which to have our lawmakers work, to take the lead and push for change that is real and that is lasting. I'm asking that you stand and ask Congress to do the things that are not difficult in my eyes. As one person who may not know everything about policy, I do know that you can spend lots of money for lots of things, but let's take the money that's needed for the communities on the ground that have suffered the most before and since COVID. I know that you can look at the Senate and help push the Senate to pass 2 bills that might help the states that have absolutely no protection at all within their states. I'm a leader who sits in the state of New Hampshire who has not one gun violence prevention bills. I work with 19 other leaders of states that have no gun violence prevention bills. I look to my federal lawmakers to do the most simplest of things in my mind that make our common sense and that lead to our public health approach to solving this issue, because we know you can, so that my states that I work with can have a little safety and a little peace of mind. We know that one piece of legislation will not change this, but we do know that we have leaders who have to lead. And from my chair in New Hampshire, where I have no protections against gun violence, I need the leaders to act. I do not want to sit on another call and once again hear the stories that break my heart every day that stem back to the 45 years that I have watched gun violence in this country. Thank you, Poe, and thank you everybody for the stories that you have shared. I feel all of the pain that I hear in your voices.
Thank you so much, Clay. I am so sorry that you've had to face this pain for over 4 decades. 4 decades, it's unreal. And the thing is, the majority of Americans are with us. 90% of Americans support background checks, 67% of Americans support assault weapons ban, and many other measures. Next, we have Eresa Knapper Williams. She's the founder and executive administrator for Not Another Child. Eresa.
Good afternoon, everyone. I first want to acknowledge everyone that is here, even in this painful place of revisiting the loss that you have faced. My heart goes out to each and every one of you as you have talked, along with my heart going out to all of the mass shootings that have been happening just as recent as last night in Chicago, as Chico spoke about. And to those who experience this loss, not knowing that the last kiss would be the last kiss, and that the last phone call would be the last phone call, the last text and the last goodbye would be the last goodbye. Thank you for allowing your strength to continue to push you to pivoting this gun violence issue, which has affected us Miss Lasher Summers has been going through it for over 45 years, she said. Myself in inner city community, I can think back as well, but nothing reminds me more of gun violence than August 7th, 2006, when I got the call that my child was murdered or actually shot because we didn't know anything at that time. And as unique as our stories are, and as much as I work with Greg today, I found it just crazy that his story was so similar to mine when he even got to the hospital. And I waited for them to come and let me know what was going on with my son. And the doctors, not even police, asked me what was my son doing there? Did I know what my son have on? Until I screamed at the top of my lungs, what is going on with my son? And how I never received services. It was ironic that I knew somebody from prior who had lost a child. And so while, just going through this whole thing, you see that the layers that are there, the layers that legislation addresses, the layers that the needs of our community address just for us, that the layers are there. And I'm grateful for this platform that is setting the foundation of the layers as far as legislation. But we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. Because legislation is needed and funding peace in our communities are needed. I have sat and I have been in the midst of Poe and others over maybe this last year or two. And, I'm grateful that we are on the same platform, fighting for the same things. But I'm sorry, my child didn't get killed by something that's used in a war. He was killed by a handgun, and so thank you for this platform. Thank you for us working together. Thank you, Greg, for pushing the needs of what we need in our Black and Brown communities. And I'm sitting on the Fund Peace Committee, but one thing that we have been saying is fund peace now. Fund peace now. Tomorrow's not an option. Tomorrow may be too late. Tomorrow, Erica will wake up to another call. Tonight, she may wake up to another call. Her office may call her any minute. Fund peace now, because tomorrow is too late. And so, once again, I just thank you guys for this place and for this opportunity. And let's just keep putting the pressure on the Biden administration, on all of those who have made promises and are backing it up with meetings. But now we need action over empathy. And thank you for this place.
Thank you so much, Eresa. You're part of the family. We're united. Okay, it doesn't matter the color of our skin or where we come from. Gun violence impacts all of us, and it's important for the leaders in this country to take action. Last but not least, right after the Sandy Hook tragedy, I pulled together a meeting between the families that were most impacted by the tragedy here in Sandy Hook with survivors from other tragedies. And Lori Haas and Sandy Phillips came to that meeting here in Newtown, and we were always so appreciative for your support and your guidance. So Lori Haas, she is the Director of Advocacy for Coalition to Stop Gun Violence, and she's been a true friend and a mentor for me.
Good afternoon, Poe and others on the call. My name's Lori Haas. I am the Senior Director of Advocacy at the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence. I have the daunting job of following all the voices that you've been hearing today. To be clear, they speak out, knowing nothing from this hard and painful work will bring their loved ones back. They do it for you. They do it for others. They do it for their communities. They do it for all of America. They do it to save lives. And I thank them from the bottom of my heart. I think that America owes them a great deal of thanks and gratitude for their selfless endeavors and commitment to this hard, hard work. On April 16th, 2007, my daughter was shot and survived the Virginia Tech massacre. That day, 32 Hokies, students and professors, were shot and killed. They weren't lost, and dozens more were injured. This tragedy is what brought me to this work, and I am blessed and honored to be able to work alongside so many at the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence and with others across the board, across America, across our communities. I've learned that gun violence is a public health epidemic, an emergency, really. It strikes day in and day out across this country. I speak on behalf of far too many. My friends Andy, Barbara, Peter, Carol, Andy, Pastor Harris, Margaret, and so many others doing the hard work on the ground to keep their families and their communities free from gun violence. Solutions are available. We know that policies that work to make gun violence rare and abnormal are happening. Laws, programs, resources, funding at the state level are making an impact. Let's do the same in Washington. We call on the president to lead on this effort. He has the compassion, the skills, the commitment, the political capacity to do this. The time is past. The time is long past for the hundreds of thousands who've been killed by guns since my family's tragedy and since I joined CSGV. But let's be clear, those numbers are someone's daughter, brother, mother, friend, classmate, neighbor, coworker, and on and on and on. Their seat at the dinner table is forever empty. And while the press shines a spotlight on the recent mass shootings, the time is past for the 600 or more who have died from gun violence in this last 8 to 10 days since we've been shining a light on those mass shootings. Homicides, suicides, domestic violence, and too many injuries to count. The time is now. We are counting on President Biden to lead on this issue. We are counting on him to compel the Senate and the leaders in Washington to do their job to protect us, protect our families, and protect communities across America. We can do this. The time is now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori, and thank you to all the speakers today for sharing your stories. I know it's painful and we're frustrated. Now we're going to go to questions, and I think we only have one question right now. And the question is essentially the White House response about our frustration is that the advocate should direct our frustration towards Congress. Wanted to know if we had a response to that, and I know that I have a response. We are very frustrated with Congress, and every week we are calling members of Congress to beg them to pass H.R. 8, pass 1446, to end the filibuster, to pass a ban on assault weapons, and pass the safe storage bill named after Ethan. We're begging them to do what the American public wants them to do, but we need leadership. Joe Biden ran on the platform of the strongest gun violence prevention, and he has beat the NRA in the past. He's good at bringing Democrats and Republicans together in the past. He's done it, and we hope that he can do that again with gun violence prevention, because it's critical. And I don't know if anyone else had a thought on that.
I do think it's absolutely necessary for everyone in the House of Representatives to put the pressure on the Senate, for constituents and voters to put pressure on the Senate, and for all of us to put pressure on the Senate. This is where these bills are. This is where the next steps are going to take place. And we're counting on our leadership in the Senate. I'm counting on Senator Warner and Senator Tim Kaine to influence and use their reputations and status and political willpower to talk to people like Senator Joe Manchin and people on the fence. But let's be clear, it takes leadership, and we need that from President Biden. We know he's with us. We just need it to happen now.
And I just want to reiterate that, trillions of dollars were given to businesses to bail them out. And we're just saying, put a fraction of that into our children's lives. Our children's lives are valuable. I'm sitting here watching people hold back tears. I'm sitting here watching people hold back the pain, the fact that they had to pick up their loved one and never speak to them again in their life. Every day I go through trauma. People think this work is easy. It's not. It's not easy. The people on this Zoom know that many times I burst out because we feel this pain of our children dying day in and day out, and nobody cares. How do you think people feel when nobody cares about their children? When every day Black children are being shot in the street and we're acting like it's not even happening. How do you think people feel? I wear this shirt purposely because we are quick to talk about gang violence. We are quick to talk about Bloods and Crips. We need to lock up gangs. We need to do federal indictments in RICO. We saw a gang attack on the Capitol on January 6th. We saw a gang attack on our Capitol, on our principles, on our values on January 6th. Their friends didn't get indicted. Their houses didn't get kicked down. We have to value life, and every Democrat and every Republican, every Democrat and every Republican needs to put the lives of our children first. Our children's lives have to matter. And like Poe said, our children's lives throughout this nation has to matter.
Thank you, Erica. So President Biden, we call on you to meet with us. Meet with the survivors that are here, with the groups. So many groups are ready to meet with you, find a solution, and make sure we get the job done to start saving lives. We can't lose another life to gun violence. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today.